Hello and welcome to Moments with Maureen. I'm your host, Maureen Nunn. My very special guest is Stephen Miller, who is the clinical coordinator for Southwest Network in Arizona and has personally experienced the incredibly devastating life of being an addict, of going to prison for drug-related consequences, of knowing how it is to lose a family member to drug overdose, and who has turned his life around when he was in prison, and now he's moving forward in his journey to helping countless others. Welcome, Stephen, and thanks so much for sharing your life with us.
Thank you for having me.
So can we start at the very beginning? Tell us about your childhood and then maybe give us an overview.
So I'm originally from Tucson, Arizona, born and raised. I was born in a hospital called Tucson Medical Center in Tucson, and I have one older sister and I had a younger brother. Growing up, my mom was a teacher and my dad was a firefighter, and I excelled at doing sports. I liked playing football. I was on the speech and debate team in high school, and I did swim team. So I was very active. I had a very active childhood. Something just never felt entirely right with me, though. You know,
What was the thing that may not have felt entirely right with you?
I don't know how I just always felt like under the surface, like the self-worth stuff, like having like low self-esteem or just like a depression that was there to where I just never felt like anything made me feel complete. You know, I could be doing a sport or doing an activity, but I just never felt like I was completely within like whatever my purpose was. So I felt like something was always lacking.
Interesting. Even though you excelled in school, you excelled in sports, you excelled as a wonderful son, that's really interesting. So what led you then to experiment with drugs?
Started hanging out with some people that were already using them, and then I just naturally started, doing the same thing that they were doing. So I started with marijuana. I smoked marijuana before I ever got drunk or tried other drugs. And it just kind of gave me like a gateway to where I felt like I thought I was better on those things than I was not on them. So I felt like it made me feel complete, but it didn't.
Okay, so you said that marijuana was almost the gateway to using other drugs. What were the other drugs that you got involved with?
After I tried marijuana, I started using hallucinogenics, cocaine, and ultimately it led me to heroin.
Okay, so what were then some of the bad choices that you made using drugs?
Drugs led me to want to make decisions that put everybody else around me at risk. So I would take like a lot of negative risks. I would start selling drugs as one way in order to be able to get more drugs. So I was selling weed. I got connected with people that were moving large quantities of marijuana, and I started working for them in order to pay for my habit.
So doing these things were risky behaviors. What happened ultimately?
I was arrested and went to prison 2 different times. The first time I was caught with 271 pounds of marijuana, and I was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison.
Okay, and then the second time?
I was caught for a couple armed robberies I had done in the midst of trying to be able to get more heroin to avoid withdrawal. So I was not making very good decisions.
And so you were incarcerated at that time too. For how long?
I did 7 years, 3 months on that sentence. I was given an 8.5. When I was arrested, I was given a plea of 7 years to 42, and I was given 8.5. And I did 7 years, 3 months on that. So when I was released from prison in 2019, I had almost 10 years of incarceration at the age of 31.
So for the viewing audience, and also for me, when you're incarcerated, what choices can you make when you're incarcerated regarding your behavior?
I think it ultimately comes down to you. You can choose to keep on doing the same path you're on, and you can hang out with people that are still causing problems, getting caught with cell phones, getting caught with drugs, fighting, or you can make a decision to be like, I want a different life,
So you were incarcerated the first time for 2.5 years, and the second time for armed robbery for 7.5 years. Okay, so here you are incarcerated for a total of, is it right, 11 years?
Almost altogether, just over 9 years I spent.
9 years. So when you're incarcerated, you have a lot of time to think.
A lot of time.
A lot of time to think. And so what were you actually doing on a daily basis when you were incarcerated?
So when I first got incarcerated, I was still kind of with the mindset where I wanted my life to be different, but I wasn't really willing to put the work into it yet. It was at a point where I had a serious, internal reflection to where I had to make the decision, like I can either keep talking about the life I want to have, or I can start doing something now about it. I got involved in school. I started going to 12-step meetings to address some of my issues because if I just take the drugs away, I'm still the same person that led me to use the drugs.
Right.
I think education when I was away was a big deal. And then in a lot of our prison systems, you're not mandated to do any of these treatments. They don't make you, like I tried to get involved into drug treatment. They didn't put me in it until my last 3 months and I couldn't finish the program.
Oh my goodness.
I had to personally want to seek this stuff to be able to try to help myself get better and just surround myself with other people that were also of the same mindset.
Was there anything in prison that you read, that you saw, that you heard that really influenced your life, really impacted your life?
There's a book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Can you repeat that, please?
Man's Search for Meaning.
Man's Search for Meaning.
By Viktor Frankl.
Okay.
He was a psychiatrist. He went through the concentration camps during World War II and lost his entire family. And he wrote about, not necessarily about that happening, but he wrote about like the mindset in terms of those that survived and those that didn't, and finding some ultimate sense of purpose. And within that book, it just kind of talks about being able to find something like outside yourself or something that drives you. So there's a saying in there that said specifically, if you find your why to live, you can survive almost any how.
Can you repeat that? Because it's really worth repeating.
Find your why to live, and you can survive almost any how.
So what was your why?
My why was I want to be able to help others, and I want to be able to feel like my life is worth living.
And the how?
Is by, basically applying myself and being active within those things instead of just living it or just speaking about it, because I'm really good at talking and I can talk all day, but it's the actions that I had to be able to start doing, and that's what that book kind of made sense to me, is like I can be talking about it or thinking about it, but I need to actually start doing something.
Wow. So what did you start doing then? Because it's a big leap. As you said, you wanted to participate you did the 12 steps. For the viewing audience, can you tell us what the 12 steps are, please?
The 12 steps are a roadmap to better living. So it's recognizing that we don't have all the answers on our own self. We need to look at others to help and then get help from other people as well, and finding a higher power. When you hear higher power, it doesn't necessarily have to be your interpretation of God or what mine is. It matters about what yours is, and whatever can help you maybe have a different frame of reference in your own self to be able to realize that it's okay to not have all the answers. And I think to me, that's what the 12 steps are about, is like, how can I be able to get someone to help me so I can be able to help them in return, them stay sober. So 12 steps are kind of built upon like a community of people helping one another and having guidance from other people that have been in the similar situations. I'm a big believer in people getting active in the 12-step program early on in recovery, because I think it could be very beneficial to just change things up. Because if we keep doing exactly what we did to get us in the situation, we're never gonna improve.
That's right. So here you are in prison. You've read Viktor Frankl's books. If you think about the why, then you'll be able to live the how. And then, so what did you become involved in then when you were in prison?
So while I was away, I earned 2 associate degrees through correspondence, through the mail, an addictions studies one and a general one. And that allowed me to be able to have some education under my belt, to be able to start feeling like I wasn't just wasting all that time, because getting an 8.5-year sentence, you're like, is my life over? Like,
right.
Am I gonna not ever leave here? Am I gonna not get out of this place? Or am I gonna leave a worse person? And I had to make a lot of decisions that, like, I don't wanna be a worse person. Like, I don't wanna have this be like, I don't wanna be institutionalized, like a lot of people have happened. And I had to process that in my mind to realize that this is all temporary. I can either keep on working to be the person I wanna be, or I can just wait till I get out and have it magically happen. And life doesn't work that way.
You did a lot of introspection, a lot, and really, you were kind of your own cheerleader. I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't want to be a victim. I really want to be a survivor. You mentioned at the top of the show that you have a sister and you had a brother. Can you tell us about your brother?
So my younger brother, Garrick, was his name. He took a similar path to me, to where he was also having his own addiction problems. And I will be honest, I probably played a really big role in being a negative influence on his life, leading him to the decisions that ended up ending his life. He was involved in the heroin similar to the way I was. And when I was away in 2014, I found out that he had overdosed on fentanyl.
Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. Wow, that's really huge, really, really huge. And you heard about it. You didn't actually, you weren't there.
No, I was told to go see the chaplain after count 10 minutes before they were going to do like the head count. And I was like, when you get told in prison to go see the chaplain, that's like something bad happened. Mm-hmm. So I jumped on the phone in the front of the pod. I'm in a 200-person dorm crying my eyes out because I just found out my younger brother died from overdosing. Mm-hmm. And there's, I couldn't go see my family. I couldn't have any of that. I had to basically deal with that for another 5 years until I got out and got to go see his gravesite. But my decisions led me there, and I can either use that as, I'm a felon now, or I'm a drug addict, or I'm a number of things. And I've realized and learned, if you argue for your limitations, they're yours. I could say, okay, I just can give up now because I had this happen to me. Or I can use it like, I had these things happen to me, but that doesn't have to be what defines me.
I'm listening to you. You have a lot of self-talk, a lot, because I can imagine that somebody was not there cheering you on, as one of the guardians or the security people in the prison. Yeah, mm-hmm. Come on, you can do this. You can, you can survive. So you have a lot of self-talk and a lot of really belief in your purpose, which is a beautiful thing. So here you are in prison. You got your degree. Mm-hmm. And then when you left, what did you decide to do?
I wanted to continue that path. So I took those credits I got through Rio Salado College, which I'm extremely grateful that they had that program in there. And I had my great uncle John, who helped pay for a lot of my schooling while I was away, because he told me, when I was away, he's like, I can't take this money with me when I go. And if I can educate my family and be able to give back, then that's what I want to do. And he helped me tremendously,
That's great. Okay, so you have your degree, mm-hmm. You leave, then your first job is?
I was doing commercial electrical, and I was doing commercial electrical, and I was like, I can do manual labor, I can do a lot of different things, I can do it, but I wanted to be able to I felt like my purpose was higher than that.
Okay.
So I got involved with a company called Community Bridges as a peer support. I applied to every other location than the one that called me to come work for them. I started at I took a pay cut to get involved in the behavioral health field because I wanted to be able to get my foot in the door to be able to start doing exactly what I've been talking about for years, mm-hmm. was trying to help people.
So that led you to that first job. But mm-hmm. Now, tell us about your job now.
Well, so as a peer support, I went to case manager, managing a team, like 30 patients that were severely mentally ill and doing their medication. And then I got promoted to what's called a SMI, so severely mentally ill clinical coordinator. And that was in December of 19, and I've been doing it for almost 3 years now, to where I've been a supervisor on an outpatient medication management and home visit team.
And how many people are you serving?
298 right now.
298 people. My jaw is dropping down to my kneecaps. How do you do this?
I have a lot of good mentors in my life that help me learn how to prioritize my time and to realize, what is the most important thing right now? Like, what can I do to help this person and go on to the next, and be able to have a team around me being able to help me out.
So SMI stands for severely mentally
ill.
So take us through some of those diagnostics.
So some of them could be schizophrenic, they could be bipolar, severely depressed, or have anxiety disorders. We also deal with those that have like antisocial personality disorder, a number of just very severe mental illnesses that are not like, you're not just sad one day, you're so sad that you might have tried to hurt yourself or kill yourself. And that's how you get to my team.
My golly, that is just huge. So what are some of the things, I know this is a huge question, but since you work in that field every single day, what are some of the major things that really help a person get well, or at least be able to function, get balanced? What are you finding as some of the major things?
So I've noticed a lot of themes between those that have like addictions or mental illness. Mm-hmm. And the number one thing is whether someone's willing to realize that they have a problem and they need to do something about it.
Okay.
Because you could say I have a problem and I recognize it, but what do you, that's a huge battle. Because a lot of people, they're like, I don't have a mental illness, I don't need to take meds. But you get them on meds and they're doing better, and then they realize, and then they're like, okay, somebody will either stay on that, or someone will be like, I'm good now, I don't need to take it anymore. But then you start that cycle over again of having to try to rebuild. And I think it's the same way with addiction, to where I'm good now, I don't have a problem anymore. But then you go dabble again and you're right back to where you were, even worse.
So how do you stay clean and sober?
Helping other people and realizing that, I don't think negative consequences are enough to keep people clean or doing well, because I've been to prison before and I promised I was never going to go back, but I still never changed the behavior. I had to have something more. I think it's about finding your purpose is the biggest determining factor about whether someone's going to succeed or not.
That is beautiful. That really is. What can parents tell their children or help their children to not get involved in drugs?
I think taking an active role and being around and talking to them about how their child is doing, not necessarily always preaching or trying to tell them what to do, because I think naturally if someone's already using drugs or alcohol or thinking about it, they might be a little rebellious already. And I don't think they're going to be like, oh, mom and dad said don't do this, so I'm going to stop. It's like, no, be like, okay, so what can I encourage them to go do other than this? Like how can I talk to them, on a one-on-one level? Because, if I'm always being told what to do, I typically didn't like that. Like I like to be able to talk to me like I'm a person, not necessarily talk to your kid like they're a person. Not everything needs to be like hammering away points at them. Sometimes just simply listening to how they're doing instead of always being the one talking goes a long way.
This is so true. To underline, if I had a whiteboard here, I would say underline, 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 listen, 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 and don't preach and don't scold and don't lecture. So as listen to your kids, tell me about your day. Let's sit down, not being on your phone, actually giving your child eye contact. And you mentioned too, you had kind of a low self-esteem.
And I think that kind of like compounded over the years. And I was a middle child, so like I had that dynamic going on. I had like, I don't know, I felt like empty. I don't know, I don't feel that way anymore today. And that's a beautiful thing, because I had that mentality. And it's even the same when I was in prison. Like a lot of people wait till they get out to start trying to change their lives. And I was like, that's like a fantasy world. Like you got to start, you can think about something, but you got to take action, and I think that the more people that can be encouraged to take action, it's a positive one, the world's going to be a better place as a result of that.
When you speak, we really listen. We really, really listen. You're so articulate about, the human heart and what we really truly need, and not some psychobabble, but it's a beautiful thing to listen to you speak about this. So taking us back to this day of yours with 260 people and with severely mental illness. So what is it, if I can say, not a typical day, but a day in your life now?
So I work Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, and I go to work and I have a morning meeting at 10 to where we're reviewing our patients that are like in the hospital. So whenever one of my patients goes to the hospital, we get alerted about it and we start immediately discharge planning, getting ready. How are we going to help them get out of the hospital and maybe not return this time? So it's like, what interventions can we do? We evaluate the person based on who they are, because nobody wants to be viewed like a statistic or viewed like a label in the chart, because I can read someone's chart and, okay, I know exactly what someone else thought about you, but I don't really know you.
That's a beautiful thing. Really great. So you evaluate every single one of them.
I meet with them as much as I can, considering there's 300 of them, almost 300 of them, that's a lot.
That's a small village. It really is, Stephen. Oh my golly, 300. Okay, so you evaluate each one according to their needs and according to why they're there.
And find out, like some of them might need to be in like a higher level of care. So like some of them might need like a 24-hour facility where they're being helped to learn living skills to maybe one day go to a lower level to have more freedom. A lot of my members, I got ones that have graduated from college that stayed on their medication and are schizophrenic. I got other ones that choose not to take medication and are homeless, and we're constantly trying to figure out how we can help this person help themselves. My job ultimately is to help create as much independence as possible, because if I'm not there, I don't want them to not know how to, I want them to be able to still thrive. And I think that's the thing is I want to help each one of my patients learn how to thrive in their life, because everybody can survive. Survival doesn't necessarily mean living good or having a good life. That just means you haven't died yet.
Right.
you
Yeah.
know? So if
Well
I can get,
said. Well said. Yeah. So that's really huge. And then you also, you're a humble guy, but you also graduated from college summa cum laude. Okay, there are those who graduate summa cum laude, which is the highest level, straight A's plus more and more and more. So you graduated from college with summa cum laude, and now you're working on your.
Master's in Clinical Mental Health Counseling at Grand Canyon University.
And so how long will that take you to finish?
So I will be done with the classes in 24, and then I'll start my internship and practicum. And so by the end of 25, I hope to have that done. 2025, and then I will start the hours to work on my independent licensure.
And so independent licensure will be doing what?
It'll allow me to one day be able to have my own private practice to where I could be implementing a lot of what I learned in my own life to be able to help my patients out, and also hopefully have a team that is similar to what I'm doing now, because I want to do something that's holistic to help the whole person. So given my own history of learning like what's worked for me and then networking with other people that are similar to that, I think I can create like a center, like I want to call it like ULSA, One Less Suffering Addict. So it'd be like an ULSA center.
Oh, I like that.
So that's what I would like to do. So I'd like to do addiction counseling as well as mental health counseling to help people with depression. Because I think that, or anxiety disorders, I think there's a lot of potential there to be able to help people, you know, that if I've been through and I've gotten out of the darkness, there's nothing like a guide who's been there themselves to be able to help someone out of it also.
So what were the highlights of you getting out of the darkness? You mentioned Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. Mm-hmm. But aside from that, what really got you out? Because it's really heavy, it's dark, it's dismal, it's very oppressive, the whole thing. How did you get out? And you're such a happy, joyful person. You laugh easily and you care about so many things.
I had to stop taking negative risks in my life and start taking positive ones. So a lot of that has to do with like back in the day when I was in my midst of my active addiction, like normal people aren't going to be like, let's go run this carload of weed to be able to make money to get heroin, right? That's not a rational thought. Nobody's going to be like, that's a good idea. So I would take really bad decisions like that. Compared to now, it was I got involved, I took a pay cut to go into this field, to go work in this field, and I had to take other risks to promote and be able to take on those, you know, I was out of prison for like 7 months after that, and I got promoted to a manager there. And that was because I was like, I'm gonna take this risk. Like, this is a huge risk. Like, I'm gonna be taking on all this responsibility, but I felt like I was at the right place at the right time, but I had people that believed in me. I think there's nothing quite like having people in your corner, whether it's friends or family or just somebody you just barely met. But if you can connect with people, then you realize you're not alone and you're not just in this world by yourself.
And you're giving so much to other people and really helping them on the life journey. That's a really big load. What do you do to recharge?
I like to mountain bike and I like to off-road in my 4Runner and go to EDM music festivals.
I'm sorry, I'm elderly. So what is EDM?
Electronic dance music.
I have but I'll look it up. Do you actually dance? I mean, you put on this music and dance?
For someone that's 6'4", I got some moves.
You got. We'll do another show on that, Stephen. Okay. But you know, exercise is so good for those endorphins too. Oh my golly. Mm-hmm. And music makes the world go round. So if you're dancing and exercising at the same time, and mountain biking and off-roading, and you got a vehicle currently?
I got my 4Runner. I just souped up with new tires and suspension. So I like to go use it.
Okay. So do we have a picture of that?
I will get you one.
You know what we should do? We should get a picture and we should post it, because that's really great. You souped that whole thing up. Mm-hmm. Okay. So going back to some things when you're in prison, what part does God play in this? When you really feel like you're totally alone, nobody's there to help you, nobody's going to be your cheerleader, what part does God play?
I think that God reaches us at different points in time in our lives when we need it the most. It could be a person, or it could be an idea or something you read. I think there's just moments and times and glimpses that kind of motivate us to go forward. God in my life put a lot of people in my life I'm still in touch with now that I met when I was away, that I'm very close with. And I think that that's the way God touched me the most, was just surrounding me with people that he wanted me to be able to be around to help me be who I am today. And if it wasn't for It's amazing how a lot of people say, oh, people find God when they're locked up. Of course, right? Because you're miserable and you're trying to seek, but sometimes we need to be in a place like that to be able to be receptive to what God's trying to tell us.
It's beautiful, that really is. So for the viewing audience who may be struggling with addiction and they really don't know where to go, what to do, who to contact, what would you recommend for them? What advice and counsel would you give them?
I would look at Alcoholics Anonymous. You can go online and just do a simple Google search for Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous, which is more centered on those that have maybe more of a drug background that they're trying to overcome. Either one of those are really good. Smart Recovery is another one, to where if those that aren't trying to have the higher power aspect, because not everybody is going to, it's not a cookie cutter process. There's going to be multiple paths to trying to get the same ultimate result, like to be clean. It's about looking up and being able to, you're not going to like every meeting you go to. You're not going to like everybody you come across that is in this field, but you got to find somebody or one reason why today's going to be different for you. I'm really good at finding out. I can come up with thousands of reasons I'm going to get high today. I need one reason to hold on to for me not to go get high.
And you are for sure a survivor. Victim no more. You are an incredible survivor, and giving your heart and your soul and your mind and all of your help to helping other people. It's a beautiful life that you're living, a beautiful purpose that you have. I'm a much better person for knowing you. I really am. And I wish you all the best, and God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
They said if I got drunk,
What if I did coke?
I'd be one of the guys. They said meth would help me get through my exams.
They said sniffing glue was no big deal.
Totally safe.
I could party all night.
They said heroin would be the best high I ever had.
It would help me forget my problems.
He said he'd love me forever if I smoked crack with him.
They said I wouldn't get hooked after the first hit.
They said that Ritalin would help me focus.
They said weed wouldn't lead to harder drugs.
They lied.
They lied.
They lied.
He lied.
Find out the truth about drugs.
Drugfreeworld.org.
Drugfreeworld.org.
So we have heard from Stephen that choosing to use drugs or not will have a substantial effect on the rest of your life. No one who is addicted to drugs or alcohol will admit that they knew substance abuse would initially come to dominate their life. They thought that they could manage their drug or alcohol addiction, but instead it spiraled out of their control until they got help. As we have heard so well from Stephen, lots of help is available. So be a survivor like Stephen and not a victim. God bless you all.
Are you struggling to hear in your noisy dining room? Do you have to pause and think about what people are saying so you can figure out the words? Do you find yourself lost in conversations? Can you hear but you don't understand the words people are saying? You need to get on the Ark. No, not Noah's Ark. This is Stewart's Ark hearing aids with artificial intelligence. You will never know how much better you can hear until you listen to the clear sound and noise right in our office. Call us today. Don't miss the boat and tell them Stewart sent you.
You have a club for every scenario. A driver for the long holes. Wedges to get you over the hazards. And a putter for when you need a touch of finesse. What about your retirement? Will you have enough to play the back nine? Call to set your 15-minute phone visit today and let's find out. Get a second set of eyes on your retirement plan.